When I started this business, the first thing I did was like who my target audience was, what I was trying to do, how I was trying to market myself. And I think I just had a lot clearer vision coming into this business than the other three.
1, 2, 3.
This episode is with LA wedding and lifestyle photographer Caroline Tran. Caroline began as a physics teacher, and after years of being creatively drained, she decided to make the switch to being a photographer. Her work can be seen internationally now in print and online and is centered around passion and playfulness. Juggling kids, starting and maintaining a business, and staying sane can be a juggling act, one that Caroline knows all too well and is more than qualified to share some tips and advice on. Caroline gives us some insight into how to transition from a 9-to-5 by setting concrete goals, playing off your individuality, and educating your clients. She focuses on building a business to fit into your lifestyle, not the other way around. By starting your business from within and marketing yourself in the right way, Caroline helps remind us of the passion for photography that we all share. And with that, enjoy the show. This episode is sponsored by MusicBed. MusicBed is making better music accessible to everyone, from wedding and small business films to broadcast ads and features. With a highly curated roster of artists and composers, they've helped soundtrack groundbreaking projects from Jaguar, Apple, Hulu, and Nike, as well as HBO's The Leftovers, Amazon's Transparent, and Oscar-winning shorts. They also help you where you need it most, in your search. Not only do they have incredible browse and search tools, but on top of that, they have a team of people on staff who are dedicated to helping you find the perfect song for your project. At no extra charge, they'll send you suggestions based on what you're looking for. Consider them another member of your team. Discover why leading brands around the world make MusicBed the first choice when licensing music at musicbed.com/welcome. That's musicbed.com/welcome. And to sweeten the deal, they're offering 20% off your next on-site license. Just use coupon code ARC, that's capital ARC, at checkout. I want us to give you a big warm welcome, Caroline. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great to have you here. I guess I just want to jump straight into it here. Really I want to find out, how does a physics teacher end up becoming a wedding photographer? Can you dive into a bit about your history and your background and how you ended up where you are right now?
Yeah, so I've always been creative and I've always wanted to do something in the creative, but my parents just didn't quite support it. They saw it as a hobby and that it should stay that way. And so I ended up majoring in physics because I loved my high school physics teacher. And when I got into upper division physics, I just realized, okay, this is not what I liked at all. And this is so antisocial and not creative at all. But if I switched majors at the time, I would probably be looking at like another 5 years of undergrad. So to cope with that, I ended up picking up an art minor just to have some sanity and also to balance out my GPA. So I ended up taking a photography class, taking like Photoshop, graphic design, and I loved it. But it was just a hobby to me. And I remember when I was graduating undergrad, my photography instructor was like, "Oh, where are you going next?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to get my master's at UCLA." And he's like, "I teach extension courses there. You need to come and just audit my classes. Like, I see so much potential in you. I'm not going to charge you. Like, I just think you should continue to pursue this." And I was flattered and I kind of chuckled and I was like, I'm going to be a grad student. I don't have time for hobbies anymore. And I actually put my camera down for the 2 years that I was a grad student. And during that time, I've always known that I wanted to be a business owner. I just felt it in me. I just didn't know in what. And so this actually started way back as an undergrad. My last year in undergrad, I found a product that's not even that interesting. But the funny story is that it's essentially shrimp that I was selling. But Nice. It's little shrimp in like a little globe. So it's like an ecosystem. It's like a desk decoration kind of thing, like a little fish tank with little shrimps. And so, found a wholesale opportunity and was selling it I was renting stalls at flea markets and trade shows and stuff like that and just selling them out of a booth. And it was fun, but I realized it wasn't sustainable because I had no passion in it. It really was just an opportunity. And it was good money. Like I remember, for a college student, like one day I remember walking away with like $2,000 of cash in my pocket and like, wow, as a student, like this seems great, Sure. But I thought about it longer term and I was like, okay, I don't really see myself like waking up at 4 a.m. to go to flea markets selling this all the time. So we ended up dropping that. And the next hobby was I started sewing clothes and I started collecting these dolls and I was making doll clothes and selling. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but these dolls were like, it was like a cult following. And these little doll clothes were selling for like $400 to $800 a piece. So,
wow.
Yeah. And that was kind of cool. You know, I was hand making these little doll clothes and it was good money on the side. And then I would sell them on eBay or I had like a website that I created and was selling that. And then I think I learned a lot from the doll clothes business. What I learned was there were some companies who were able to sell these doll clothes for $800. And yet there were these companies in China that were selling them for $10. And so in the process of, you know, because I'm hand making these, I can only make so many at a time. I really studied the difference between these companies. Like, why was one company selling them for $800 to $1,000 one outfit? And these other companies were only selling them for $10. And so it was through that I think I really developed or learned like marketing skills. One, I noticed the good companies had better photos. So that's when I really started to learn how to take pictures again, picked up my camera again. And I mean, a lot of us doll collectors are really proud of our dolls and we're taking good pictures of our dolls anyway. But I was noticing with the doll clothes, like the more connected the audience felt to the photos and to the outfits, the more they were willing to pay for them. And, you know, better lighting mattered. I started investing in better lenses to get better depth of field in the shots and better detail because these dolls were like, some of them were tiny. I'm talking about like a maybe 2-inch large dress. And so like the macro lens came in really helpful for that. And, wow. But yeah, so through that was how I honed my photography skill. The other thing, like the really good marketing lesson that I also learned from this is when something is one of a kind, it can command more money. So when there's an outfit released and you tell people it's the only one of its kind, you're going to be the only one with this outfit, it would sell for $800. However, if you mass produce it, then okay, now you're getting $10 for it. So, and you have to create hype over it. So even if you were to create a re-release of the dress, you then have to create hype that, okay, this once sold out thing is coming back out. And, you know, and so I think I carried that on over to the photography really well in that, you know, as artists, like if you market yourself as the artist, there will never be any other competition. You are the only one, right? And so,
100%.
Yeah, as opposed to if you are, say, like a high volume company. And so that one really taught me how I want to position my business. Do I want to position myself as a high volume company where you're doing it for low amounts per contract, but a high volume of contracts? Or do you want to market yourself as one of a kind and you take less, but you charge more per client? And I chose to go the more exclusive, more boutique route. And that was by choice only because I am only one person and I am limited to how many I can take. So I think that one failed business is where I really learned a lot. And the reason why it failed as well is because it wasn't a sustainable business model. I couldn't sit there and sew dresses forever. So little, I was like hand sewing these doll clothes, you know, and that was not sustainable. So
it sounds like you're obviously very entrepreneurial when you were studying. Is this while you were doing your Bachelor of Science or was this after university?
So the shrimp business started during my last year, getting my Bachelor of Science. So that one ended up going down because when I first started that one, there was not a lot of other people doing it. So we were able to make a good return on it. However, eventually the market started getting saturated. And I wasn't willing to lower the price. There was and in hindsight, looking back, I should have just liquidated the products. But I think I was too prideful and I was holding on to the products. So I ended up losing money on products that never moved at the end. But, it was a good lesson. And I think the lesson there is when to get out, like when the market is saturated and when you're no longer passionate in it and knowing that you're not willing to stick through it. So then the sewing business was while I was getting my master's. The second business I didn't really go into was trying to sell adult clothes. I was designing and sewing my own clothes and selling it online. And this was pre-Etsy days, but if Etsy was around, it would probably be an Etsy shop. And
fair enough. Yeah. And so you've always been very entrepreneurial then, I guess. Is this something that you've learned from friends at school or through your family?
Definitely not from family. Well, I mean, I guess if I think about it, my parents, my dad, way back in the old days, back when he was still in Vietnam, he did have a business. But since coming to America, neither of my parents are business owners. So I did not grow up with experience of any kind of entrepreneurship or business ownership. And in fact, my mom was not encouraging at all of this. When I started this business, it was while I was a teacher. So once I finished grad school, I dropped all the other hobbies and I focused on teaching. And during teaching was when I ended up picking up the side business of photography, or side hobby, I guess how it started. And it took off really fast. Like within 6 months, I had like a fully booked calendar. I was teaching till 3, running off to do an engagement shoot, and then coming home just in time for dinner, grade work, plan for the next day, edit into the wee hours of the night, get a little bit of sleep, and then go back to teaching and then repeat the cycle. I was shooting like most of the days after work. And if I was not, I was catching up on grading or editing. And I remember my mom would tell me, like when I would try to hint to her, I was like, photography is going really well, Mom. And she's like, okay, that's good, but don't let it affect your real job. So she never saw photography as like a real thing. And even when I told her I was going to quit teaching, she was only okay with it because I told her it was a leave of absence. And it was a leave of absence for 1 year. But the funniest thing is, so I think I've left teaching for 10 years or so now, or close to 10 years. She still thinks it's a leave of absence. And recently I worked for a pretty, well, for lack of a better word, dysfunctional school district. It was very overcrowded and they just have a lot on their plate. So I think it was 5 years after I left teaching, my mom got a letter home to her house that said, it's come to our attention that you have not shown up to work, like 5 years later. And wow. So my mom was so mad at me. She's like, oh my gosh, like, see, they're mad at you that you haven't reported to work. And I was like, Mom, I'm not doing that anymore.
And how does she feel about your work now then?
She doesn't say anything about it now, but I think she's accepted that it is my work now. So yeah.
Fair play. Cool. And so all these experiences that you had and all these different businesses, were there other sources that you looked to learn about running your own photography business or business in general, and all these marketing ideas and tips that you gained? Did all of this come through your experience?
Most of it was experience. Like, I don't read books, but I read a lot of articles, just because I have a really short attention span, so I can't commit to one thing for too long, but I can do short articles. And so I just read a lot of business tips. And I think a lot of it came through from my 3 failed businesses, though. Like each business, I can identify like a really important lesson that I learned from it. And the 3rd failed business being the doll clothing business, I think is where I learned most of it, because I think the big lessons were learned from the first 2. And then the 3rd one was where I kind of fine-tuned a lot of the more detailed lessons. And so when I started this business, the first thing I did was like who my target audience was, what I was trying to do, how I was trying to market myself. And I think I just had a lot clearer vision coming into this business than the other 3.
Sure. And so with those 3 businesses, could you distill for us some of those lessons, or maybe some lessons for anyone who's in their first year or 2 of starting a photography business?
Definitely. I think the first business, what I learned is running a business takes a lot of work. So you have to have passion for it, because especially when you're first starting out, you're going to be living, breathing, dreaming this business. And so if you're not that interested in it and you don't have that passion, you're not going to have that drive to succeed. And so that first business for me, it was not anything I was passionate about. It was just an opportunity. And that was fine. It was a short-term opportunity. And like in hindsight, when I look back, I should have just liquidated and got out when the excitement was gone, because it wasn't that exciting to begin with, right? Because you have to have so much grit to stick through the tough times. When you're running a business, you're going to hit these not fun moments of it. And you have to have the passion to help you persevere through the tough times of the business. And so if you weren't that passionate to begin with when times were good, you're not going to be able to do it when times are bad. So that was the first business. The second business was regarding adult clothing when I was trying to sew and design clothing. I think from that one, what I learned is you have to have a sustainable business model to start with, meaning whatever you're producing, things have to be priced in a way that you'll be able to continue to do it. And 2, I think the more exclusive your item is, I mean, it's basic supply and demand, but like when we were hand sewing clothes, I noticed the people who were able to take better pictures of the clothes and were able to put a story to the clothes was able to command a lot more money for the clothes rather than a random item that showed up. So I noticed like the girls who actually shared where their inspiration for that outfit came from, or some of them would even wear that outfit out and give that outfit kind of a life to it. And then people felt emotionally attached to that outfit and they wanted it more versus someone who just took a picture of it on a mannequin. Because then now it's just commodity at that point. It's just another skirt, another dress. And so that's kind of my first taste of how marketing really makes a difference. And then with the doll clothes, I think that's where good photography makes a huge difference. One of a kind makes a huge difference as well. And just overall how you are marketing and presenting your brand.
Wow, lots of great takeaways there. And to touch upon the last one in particular, where you mentioned one-of-a-kind photography, there's many photographers in the wedding industry and portrait industry, and we look to some of our heroes or those who are very successful. And it's common for photographers wanting to be like them and shoot in their style, but what advice do you have for somebody who is looking at these photographers but maybe could pay attention to their own kind of voice and create something a bit more unique?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between imitation and inspiration. And there's nothing wrong with being inspired by someone, but you have to be able to then take it and make it your own versus just copying them. For a photographer who's just copying another photographer, you are just commodity. Like bringing it back to fashion, you are just like, say, the Forever 21. You're not the designer. You're just putting the pieces together at that point. And as long as you're doing that, you're not going to be able to ask for a lot. And some people are fine with that. If you are a high volume studio, that's fine. You just want people to come in and tell me what to do and I will produce it for you. Done. Right. Versus being an artist. If you are the designer or the artist, now people are coming to you for your vision, not just for what you can do. They want to know what's in your head and how you're seeing things because you're the only one with that perspective. And that's what is going to be able to command the top dollars because you're not replaceable at that point. And so I think as an early artist, it's really important to find that voice. Who are you as an artist? And again, this is for someone who wants to be that artist. Some people are perfectly fine just being a high volume studio. And I think that first step is acknowledging that. Which one are you going for? Are you going to be the low priced high volume or are you going to be that artist that, more exclusive, boutique, high end, high price, but few clients?
Definitely. And so if somebody is wanting to be more of an artist and to really experiment and get out there, it can be really hard or scary to put some work out there that nobody's ever seen before. Maybe they haven't even tried it themselves before. Any kind of words of encouragement for somebody who wants to make that move and to put something out there that is a bit different?
Assuming like once you've found your voice, I think one of the most liberating things as an artist is to remind yourself that you don't have to please everybody. Like the quickest way to not please anybody is trying to please everybody because you're not going to be able to please everybody. And so once you give yourself permission to not have to please everybody, then you can start creating without fear that someone's going to hate your work. Like I spoke on Creative Live for the first time this year, and that's a very wide audience. And I went in knowing that. And I think if I had done this Creative Live maybe 7 years ago, I probably would have crumbled at some of the comments I was getting. Because some of the comments were like, oh my God, this is so boring. This is such boring work. Nothing inspiring, And then on the other hand, like for every one of those comments, I probably had 20 that was like, oh my gosh, you're so inspiring. And I love, how romantic and light and airy and quiet your work is. So one person is describing my work as like ethereal and quiet. And someone else is describing it as, boring and dull, right? So they're looking at the same thing, but they're perceiving it differently. And I'm okay with that because I'm not trying to please everybody. I like what I do. And I think for wedding photography specifically, when I decided that, I want 20 weddings a year, I only have to please 20 couples. I don't have to please everybody else. If I could just find 20 couples that love me, that love my work, that will let me do me, then I'm happy and they're happy.
Fantastic. And so going into the weddings that you're shooting right now, I understand that before you had your family, you were shooting many destination weddings around the world. And now you're a mother of two, photographing mostly while your kids are at school. Can you tell us about this experience and how you went from shooting many destinations from around the world to now raising a family and shooting more locally at home?
Yeah, I think it's the same way that I transitioned from a 9 to 5 into this business. So I'm going to go back to that point because I think most people will probably have started at that point, and that strategy works for any milestone in your business. So when I was working a 9 to 5 and I wanted to quit, I asked myself, what do I need in order to quit? For most people, it's going to be financial, right? Like, I think that's probably the scariest part of it. Will I make it? And for me, I gave myself a dollar amount. I said, okay, how many weddings do I realistically want to shoot? At that time, I did not have kids. So I thought 30 weddings a year was a good number. You know, I figured I want to match my teaching salary. So I'll have 30 wedding couples. Most likely I would have their 30 engagement session as well, plus a couple extra that people who I couldn't shoot their weddings for. So that's probably about 60 engagement sessions a year. And then some family stuff on top of that as well. So my goal was about like 30 weddings a year, 100 portrait sessions a year. So, you know, I did the math, how many per week is that sustainable? Can I handle that? How many times? You know, I thought 3 weddings a month was reasonable at that time. And I think 3 portrait sessions a week was reasonable at that time. So dividing that up, doing the math, how much per session that has to be. So I set goals, and they were very concrete goals. Like, when I book this amount of weddings, then I will quit and quit teaching. When I have this many portrait sessions, then I will quit teaching. So once I was able to quit teaching and started doing this, the wedding stuff just really took off, and I was flying all over the place. Like, probably like twice a month, I was gone somewhere. When I was pregnant with my first child, he came along with me. I think we calculated when he was in utero, he had like 100 hours of flight time already.
Wow.
And before turning 2, he had already been to like Thailand, Bali, like New York a whole bunch of times, Chicago, like just, you know, Canada. Like, he was all over the place, like as a toddler and even as a baby. And so after he turned 2, he was no longer flying free. And I had to consider that. And I think I was also realizing, it was actually while I was pregnant with him and I was staying up really late editing, that I thought, you know, this is not realistic. Like, I don't want to be editing late into the night while my kids are sleeping, and then I'm going to be too tired to play with them the next day. And also, most of these weddings are happening on the weekends. Sure, I'm home with them during the week now, but once they're in school, weekends will be the only time I'm able to see them. So how can I reposition my business now? The good thing is, by this time, social media is huge, right? Blog, Instagram, and Facebook, really great marketing tools at this point. And people are going to book what they want to see. So for me, I thought, okay, I need to tone down the number of weddings I do, because I don't want to be gone that many weekends. I think 2 a month max is a good number, like 1 to 2 a month. And how can I now supplement that income? And so I started to think of ways that I can shoot more during the week. So more portrait sessions. I had always done family sessions, but I never fully marketed the family sessions. You know, like just people contacting me and I would shoot their family. Now, most people don't really think that they need family photos until, say, a holiday card or some kind of big milestone. Then they feel that urgency to book a family session. And so for me, I'm thinking, if I want more family sessions, like, how can I create product for them so that they feel like they need another session? So one of the things that I started packaging was a baby's first year. So now I was educating my potential clients that you actually need to book 4 sessions. From the moment you're pregnant, you need to book 4 sessions. You need to book your maternity session, your newborn session. They were booking 4 to 5 because it was maternity, newborn. Some would do 100-day, 6 months, and then a year.
Wow.
So now, once someone is pregnant, I am planting the seed. I am educating them that look at what you can have. You can have 5 sessions booked for this next year already. Now, no one is going to think that on their own. No one's going to sit there and think, I really should book 5 sessions. I really should just book like a package with 5 sessions right now, right? Like you have to educate them on that. You have to educate them about the importance of consistency, about having the same photographer document these moments for you. And then I package it into like a baby's first year yearbook. So now it's like wrapped up in a beautiful book for your baby that documents, from the moment they were in utero until they turned 1. And so now I was able to convert a client. So any maternity client that comes my way, I am already pushing them for these 4 or 5 session package. And I've now turned them from a 1 session to a 5 session client. And the discount in it is actually really small, like per session. And in fact, they actually pay more because they're actually getting that book as well at the end, because you can't not get the book at that point. So yeah. So, I mean, now it's like, if I book 20 pregnant women, I just got like 20 times 5 out of that, right? For the upcoming year. So if you're trying to increase volume or increase profit, really, there's only 3 ways you can do that. 1, you raise prices, but there's a cap to eventually pricing yourself out of the market, right? You can only raise it to a certain point. The other way is you get more clients, which is fine. You can go out and keep recruiting clients. But the other way is, why don't you sell more to the same clients? If you already got 20 clients, instead of selling 20 sessions, why don't you sell 100 sessions or 125 sessions out of that same number of people? Because I think the hardest part is that initial sell. Once you've convinced them that you are their photographer, you now just have to convince them that they need these additional products or sessions.
And how did you go about educating them the first time? Was it, or somebody who maybe isn't shooting families, and I guess in a more general way, how do you convert a portrait client that you're going to shoot once into a multiple customer of yourself over a year?
You talk about it, you post a lot about it. So, I immediately wrote up a blog post about baby's first year packages and, showing the different milestones of a baby. And I mean, initially you might have to just kind of piece it together, because you don't want to wait a year for one baby to actually grow a whole year to show, right? So, you kind of piece together like, okay, I did a newborn session here. And I remember that time I shot a baby that was around 4 months old and another baby that was around 6 months old. And you start piecing that story together for them. And initially, the bookings will be a little bit slow because it takes people who will take that chance on you. But once you start being able to show more of these, then it's like my brides, the seed has been planted for even my brides when they book me for weddings already, that when I get pregnant, I have to do a baby's first year.
Nice. Beautiful. And I have so many questions, I guess, over marketing and tips around that. What I want to move on to is your presentation at the experience this October. And the title of your presentation is Building a Business to Fit into Your Lifestyle and Not the Other Way Around. And I'd love to dive a bit more into this. Obviously, you've already explained how you've transitioned from a destination wedding photographer to where you are now. But could you go a bit more into your presentation and what exactly you're speaking to?
Yeah, I think there's a recipe, so to speak, and I want to take people through this journey of trying to figure out what is realistic for them. I think there's a tendency to compare to other people a lot. And so you're seeing on social media, oh, this person's doing, X, Y, and Z. And then you see someone else doing A, B, and C, and you feel like you have to do it all. And in the process of trying to do it all, you end up being lost. And so how can you build your business by starting from within first and really asking yourself, what do you want first? What are you trying to do? And then building a marketing strategy and infrastructure around achieving that. And then how to be happy with that. Because you should only measure your own success based on your own goals, not other people's goals. And so how to be very clear about that so that you feel successful in the end of it. Because I think staying in business has so much to do with emotions as well. And so if you're not feeling successful, you're going to feel discouraged. So how can we come up with defined goals for ourselves that are based on the lifestyles that we are choosing for ourselves?
And with kind of creating this strategy or this business plan, where should people start from? Because, becoming a photographer, sometimes, as you mentioned, you were teaching and you were doing this on the side, and that's common for others. Less so it's people just kind of jumping straight into it. But at that point, you may not have a good idea of where you want your lifestyle to be or where it could be. Is that the best place to start? Thinking about your lifestyle, and how would one go about that?
I think you have to start somewhere. You don't have to worry about it being set in stone, and it can keep changing. Like my business plan kept changing based on, when I was child free versus when I had newborns versus now when I have school age kids. Well, my youngest is still in preschool, but there's each milestone in your life demands of you a little bit differently. And so just being realistic with that and setting your yearly goals for that purpose. So it's not like what you decide now is going to dictate the rest of your life, the next 20 years of your business. But I think if you can sit down and think about, like, say, your goals for next year versus your goals in 5 years.
Definitely. And do you have kind of a business mentor for yourself at all? And how are you keeping yourself accountable to review your goals even? It's really common for people to set goals at the start of the year, January 1st, and then by January 14th, they've already forgotten about a lot of that and as accountable. But it sounds like you've got like your strategy figured out there. So how do you do it all?
I wouldn't say it's figured out. I would I'm not regimented at all. I'm very go with the flow. So I go with my mood, but I'm self-regulated in that way that when I feel frustrated with my business, that's when I stop to reflect and ask myself, why am I frustrated? And I think that's a good time to revisit goals. I don't like plateaus. And so I like working towards the next goal. So when I've achieved that next goal and I'm plateauing, I think that's a good place to reflect. Do I want to stay here? Am I happy staying here? Or is it time to come up with another goal? If I am really stressed out because I'm not keeping up with my workload, then that's a good time again. So whenever I'm feeling not good, then it's a good time for me to just stop and all right, let's revisit our goals and keep myself in check.
Fair play. And has that happened recently to you? Is there anything that has been frustrating for yourself, or are there any new goals that you've been setting for 2018?
Yeah. So it's always this constant game of, okay, I'm bored. I want more projects. I want more whatever it is. So then I'll start having a lot of creative ideas, taking on these projects, and then I get overwhelmed by it. Whoa, okay, now what do I do? I just, then that's when I stop, reflect which projects are worth pursuing and which one was I just taking on, but is still so much in its infancy. And it's kind of like that shrimp business I said, some was just an opportunity. Am I passionate enough in that project to persevere through when it's not so fun? And so, recently I was like, okay, I'm going to let go of these projects and I feel okay with it. And I'm going to pour more energy into these other projects that I think that I'm more passionate about. And then just revisiting workflow, which workflows should I be outsourcing? Which ones do I have to do in-house? And tightening the nuts and bolts in my business.
Beautiful. And are there any questions that you have that you ask yourself before you take on any new work? Because it sounds like there's a few different projects that you may be having on the go, but within that, other opportunities may arise. So is there a set of questions or a particular question that just gives you a really good direction as to which way you want to proceed?
Yes. And it's a simple question, but really difficult to answer. And it's just why. I just ask myself, why? Why do I want this? And some of the projects, I don't have a good enough why. Some of it was just, I just thought it was fun, or I just thought it was a cool idea, versus some I would have a much more passionate answer for. And to be honest, some of the times, my why, when I really get to the root of it, I realized for myself, I was just trying to please someone else and not myself. And it's okay to let that go. I don't need to please that person.
Awesome answer. And I fully agree with you. That's a simple question, but really hard to answer. And is there anything that you kind of see new photographers or other photographers, more seasoned or seasoned creatives, any mistakes that you see them do in business that you see constantly? It's just something that people keep going back to. What would that be, and what advice would you have for them?
I think similarly to what I was just saying, I think a lot of new photographers are trying to do everything, trying to make every image that they see, trying to do everything that they see every other photographer doing. And I would say it's the same thing. take a step back and ask yourself, why are you doing it? Like, I recently hosted a lighting challenge where I presented like 5 lessons and then a challenge for people to go out and do it. And some of the images, like a lot of people would ask me for critique after, like I have a Facebook group for that. And so a lot of times it comes down to, I ask them, why did you make this image? What were you trying to achieve with it? You know, like for example, if it was a depth of field photo and I was like, were you just trying to do the depth? Were you just trying to show how blurry your lens is able to get something? Or were you trying to tell a story with it? You know? And so I think as artists, if we really ask ourselves, why are we creating this image? It will force us to create deeper, meaningful photos.
Beautiful advice. And with regards to photographers just taking on too much, how did you get through the process of letting go? And it sounds like you outsourced maybe some of your work. Curious as to which areas you recommend photographers letting go and how did you let go?
I mean, there's like a 80-20 rule. Like you should be putting 80% of your energy into 20% of the task that actually generates money, that actually makes your business what it is. And so the other 80% of it, you need to either outsource it or streamline it. And so it's those 80% task. It's the stuff that you don't want to do that you need to either get someone to do it or find a more systematic way of getting it done. There's some things that really matter that needs to have your hands in it. And there's some things that don't matter. Like, for example, accounting. You don't need to be the one doing the accounting. That does not make a difference in your business at all, in your client experience at all. Editing. I think editing doesn't matter as long as the results are the same. And I think that's kind of the harder part to let go. And even for myself, I swing back and forth between that all the time. But the clients don't care if you sat there working on that one image for 10 hours. You know, if someone else is able to achieve that for you and you are able to use that 10 hours in marketing instead or in networking or getting out there and shooting more, you know, that would build your business much more than you sitting behind a screen. So I don't like being in front of a screen. I can't sit still for that long for the same reasons I don't watch movies, I don't watch TV, I don't read books, and I'm not on the computer very often.
Fair play. And if you're not reading books or watching movies, how are you spending your time, Caroline?
I like being out. Like I can't even stand like being confined indoors much. I like creating. I spend a lot of my time shooting. Like I think what people don't realize is how much I actually shoot. Like what you see on social media is just a fraction of my work. So I really love connecting with people. So I'm an extrovert. So I am doing multiple shoots a day. If I'm not shooting, I am meeting with people, developing friendships. So I like real life connection.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And how much are you shooting per week then? Sounds like you've got a good system in place and everything dialed in many ways. Could you give us a bit of an insight into how many weddings you're currently aiming to do and how many shoots you're doing with families and portraits?
Yeah, weddings is between like 12 to 20.
Awesome.
Portraits, I would say could be like 100 in a month.
100 portraits in a month?
Yeah.
Wow. I thought you were going to say a year, so I just had to pause for a second there to reflect.
Yeah, no, in a month. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Is this the benefits of moving to California?
I guess so. I mean, I have a studio, and so it helps because I have consistent lighting in that studio and I'm able to get people in. So before getting the studio, I was debating, like, is it worth it? Like, should I absorb this overhead cost? And so I was doing it out of my home for a while. My master bedroom was my studio for a while. And eventually I found that it did help because I can now book back-to-back sessions. When I was driving to people on location, it was impossible to fit more than two. I mean, living in LA, you know, with the commute, it was impossible to do more than 2 sessions in a day. But once I started having people come to me, I was able to book them back-to-back. And now I can do 3, 4, 5 sessions in a day.
Wow.
And yeah. And for me, I love shooting, you know, so I think it's for yourself, you would have to ask yourself, like, which part do you enjoy more, you know? And for me, I think the shooting is where I get a lot of fulfillment from. And so, yeah, once I was able to get the volume, then I invested in a studio instead, because then now I can actually leave the setup there and not have to worry about tearing things down. And so I do a lot of collaborations where we'll do seasonal shoots. So like Mother's Day, I always partner with a different designer who'll come in and decorate for Mother's Day. And like this year's Mother's Day, we hosted, I think, 3 days. And like some of the days had 17 shoots in one day.
Wow. And are you the main photographer for this, or do you have other photographers working as well?
Yeah, I'm the only photographer.
Wow. You're so cool. That is incredible. Hats off to you, Caroline.
Thanks. And same thing with holidays. I'll collaborate with somebody, and then same thing, we'll get like 15 families in a day. And I'll usually do maybe 6 days worth of those.
Beautiful. Okay. Burnout. How do you avoid burnout? If you're shooting that many, sessions, and it sounds like you have a lot of energy and you have props to you. I mean, how does one manage? Because this is something that a lot of photographers deal with. They shoot many weddings within a year, or they're doing a lot of portrait sessions. By the time summer's over, we have very, distinct seasons here in Vancouver, at least, and obviously around Europe and other parts of the States and the world. By the time October, November hits, people are really, really tired and fatigued and need a few months, I guess, to recover before they can even get going again. How are you staying on top of things?
Burnout is real, and I go through it as well. I strongly believe that you don't know what your boundaries are until you've crossed it. So I don't hesitate. I do go full force into it. And then when I hit the burnout phase, there's the boundary. Okay. So let's dial it back now.
Yeah.
I think shooting for yourself is one great way to avoid burnout, shooting passion projects, stuff that gets you excited again. I think throughout, I try to keep a healthy balance of shoots that are for me versus shoots that are for my clients, because I think we do straddle a line between being an artist and being a service as well. And so, yes, there are going to be requests to do some things that may not be as exciting. And I think it's up to you to decide whether before taking on a job, do I need the money or do I not? And so if it's a job that you're not that excited about, but you need the money, then you can tell yourself well, I need the money. And at least you can go in it knowing that this is to fill my paycheck. So what do they need from me, and how can I give them the level of service they need to fulfill that, versus one that you're feeling really creatively charged for. And okay, this one is, I can be a little creative and I have full reign, and I'm going to let my soul do this job. And I think keeping a healthy balance of both is good.
Beautiful. That's a fantastic answer, Caroline. And I want to lead into a bit of your masterclass at the experience. You're speaking in October in Vancouver. We're super excited to have you here. And, you have a ton of experience too, and obviously beautiful portfolio and art that you're creating. Can you go a bit into your masterclass? What can attendees expect in this intimate setting with yourself?
Yeah, so I'm super excited for the masterclass. What I'm going to take our limited number of attendees through is how I shoot a wedding, from brainstorming the session together, how I direct the models, how we shoot, all the way until how I edit and the final images that we get from the shoot. So I'm working with Erin from Philosophy, and we're going to create a styled wedding shoot for them. They're going to get to shoot as well. I'm going to show them how I do it, my approach, my thought process. I think out loud a lot. I think a lot of that is from my teaching days. And so I'm really going to share with them the journey that I go through as I'm trying to create images, where I draw my inspiration from, how I move from, one idea to the next idea, how I direct my models, get them to be comfortable. And then they're going to get a chance to try it out as well. And then I'll do a demo of my post-production workflow after, see the images, see me cull it, edit some as an example for them as well.
Fantastic. That's amazing, Caroline. Once again, thank you so much for all your time. I really appreciate you spending this afternoon with us, and we're really excited to welcome you to Vancouver and to the experience this October.
Yeah, I can't wait. Excited to be there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, and looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Have a great day.
To learn more about Caroline, she can be found online at www.carolinetran.net. She can be found on Instagram and Twitter via @CarolineTran. And you can also tag us in on the images too, or any of your quotes or thoughts, using @ArcThisIs on Twitter and Instagram. One of my favorite key takeaways from this episode is where Caroline mentioned marketing yourself as the artist, therefore eliminating competition, as there is only one unique you. As an artist, carving out this unique space for yourself can help reduce competition, and we'd really love to hear what steps can you action this week to solidify your uniqueness. How will you share this with your future clients? We'd love to hear. Join the conversation using the hashtag #TheArcCreativePodcast and tweet us @ArcThisIs, or share an image that's inspired you from this conversation. We'd absolutely love to see it. We want to help you be a better artist and entrepreneur. And if you find yourself in Vancouver, or you're based in the Pacific Northwest, guess what? Caroline will also be at the experience this October 2018. As a wedding, editorial, or portrait photographer, you'll learn a lot from Caroline. She'll give a unique keynote presentation, and before all the fun kicks off on our 3 days together, she'll also be teaching a workshop, her own private and intimate masterclass, which is a styled wedding shoot alongside Philosophy Weddings with local planners here in Vancouver, Canada. As a podcast listener, you can save $100 off the 3-day pass using the code podcast at checkout. Just head to www.thisisarc.co. I want to tell you a bit more about Caroline's shoot. It's a unique wedding editorial shoot, complete with models and gorgeous details, and you'll see how Caroline approaches a wedding day, how she styles her detail shots and works with the bride and groom to bring out their emotions and create magazine-worthy portraits that capture their bliss. You can bring your camera for portfolio building opportunity, as you will all get a chance to shoot alongside Caroline. It's a full-day course, it's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's open to all levels, but we're keeping things in these classes intimate, so it's only up to about 15 attendees. Once again, for more details, head to our ARC Experience website /masterclass. Finally, thank you so much for your time. We'd love for you to stay connected with us here at ARC. Check us out on iTunes, subscribe for more shows rolling out in the forthcoming weeks with Ross Harvey, Nikki Boone, The Great North Collective, Joam Geddes, and so many more. Oh, and if you know someone who'd enjoy the show, we'd love it if you could share a link with them. And any reviews on iTunes are always appreciated too. Once again, I am your host, Sachin Khona, and with maximum love and gratitude on your creative journey, we'll catch you next time.